Nail-biting, nerve-wracking, tournament-defining. These are some words that come to your mind when you hear of New Zealand versus South Africa in a World Cup encounter. We all remember 2015, that semi-final, Grant Elliott hitting that winning six, and then a few South African players falling down on the field, shedding a few tears. Before that, 4 years before that, 2011, a low total for New Zealand to defend, and they defended that very, very successfully. A few words spoken between the two players. It got really fiery there. Will we see episode number 3 in this battle between New Zealand and South Africa? It's the debut for Edgbaston at this Cricket World Cup. You're watching ESPN Cricinfo Matchday UK 2019. I'm Nikhil Naz. Joining us live from New Zealand is Dan Vettori. We've got Albie Mokel from South Africa, and in studio, Michael Hussey in the company of Murli Karthik. Michael, I'll start with you. I don't want to take anything away from the teams that New Zealand has played this far, but would you say now starts the real test? I'm looking at the games that they've got coming. They've got tougher opponents, starting with South Africa.
Yeah, I agree. I think this will be a true test for New Zealand, and we'll really see where they're at and how good they actually are in this competition. Tough one to pick. I think both teams are really evenly matched on paper. I'm going to be really interested in the mental state of South Africa. They've been really building this up as a quarter-final type game, and it worries me a little bit because sometimes the more you build a game up, sometimes you put a bit too much pressure on yourself, and it can quell your natural instinct and flair that you want to play with. So New Zealand, they're just such a competitive team as well. They'll just keep chipping away all day. They're a great team unit. And so it's going to be a very, very tough one to pick, I think. I'm looking forward to it. Let's hope, as you say, we have an absolute nail-biter because we haven't really had one of those.
Yes, we've had between these two teams, as I mentioned, in the previous 2 World Cups. But take a look at the record there in World Cups between New Zealand and South Africa. And you'd clearly see that New Zealand hold the edge over South Africa, having won more matches as compared to the opponents that they faced today. There you have it, 7 matches. New Zealand having won 5, South Africa only 2. The last win for South Africa in a World Cup came in 1999. Murli Karthik with me. That's also testament to the fact of how well New Zealand do in ICC tournaments.
Yeah, they have, and they have. Sometimes you have this edge over a certain team. You have that feel-good factor, just as a batsman or bowler would have against an opposition. I think it's a collective feel-good factor for New Zealand against South Africa. And look, they have always been a unit which they're well-oiled in the sense that they are very fond of each other. They're always a tight unit. You can always see that in the way they greet each other. Even during the IPL games, every time you see a Kiwi meeting a Kiwi from the other side, you can see that friendship, and you can see that love and bond which they have for each other. I think that carries through in tight situations, in big games, and that's one of the reasons why I feel they've always done well in the bigger tournaments. There's something about possibly not. I personally thought that 2015 would be brilliant for them. I thought they were going to win. Sorry, us against Australia, but and I would have wanted them to win. But that didn't happen. They're just a good set of people, I feel, coming from that part of the world. You always find them heartwarming, and you want them to do well, and that's one of the reasons they do well.
Right, start getting McCullum out right at the start. I think that just completely changed that particular final. Let's go across to Dan Vettori now. Dan, I want to know, what is it playing South Africa that someone as amiable, as affable as Dan Vettori gets angry? I'm referring to the 2011 World Cup encounter, the quarter-final.
It's always a big game, the New Zealand versus South Africa. I think the typical results actually fly in the face of what's happened in the World Cup. South Africa tend to dominate New Zealand outside of the World Cup. So we always thought it was a huge game because they're such a good team, such a formidable side, well-oiled machine. They had so many match winners, and so I think what happened was the New Zealand team got really up for the game. I think there were a few things said in the media before that game. Faf may have commented on that they were already in the semi-final, so I think that motivated our team when he walked out to the middle, and you could see that in the emotion of the game. So small totals bring that out in people. I think we knew we had to defend something small, and that brought it out in that situation. But I think overall the New Zealand team respects the South African team as high as anyone because of how dominant they've been for such a long time.
All right, I'll go across to Albie Mokel because I'm referring to the matches before in the World Cup. I'll talk about the 2015 World Cup encounter. I know players might say this is a new day 4 years later, but I'm just looking at the squads. 7 members there in the South African team that were part of that 2015 game. On the other hand, for New Zealand, 6 of them. So even if you try to eliminate that out of your mind, it's not going to be possible considering how emotional that match was.
Yeah, I think the emotions will obviously change over time. My brother was part of that squad. He's not part of this Protea squad. And I know, the emotion out of it, it took him about a couple of months, 3 months to get over it. Once that is over, that turns into a scar that on this day when they walk into that field again, that scar will open again. What emotion comes out that will be different for different players. But I'm sure it will add to the flavour of this match. I'm sure this game is going to be one of the games so far in the World Cup. So Africa versus New Zealand is always a great game. They're a team who play a similar brand of cricket. And with New Zealand having the overhand over South Africa in the World Cup, as a player, as an ex-player, and as a guy watching now, that always feels like they're sort of 10% ahead of other teams in terms of tactics, where there's certain batsmen, field placings and stuff like that. So that's something I'm going to watch closely today.
Okay, we're waiting for the toss to take place, but for the moment what we're getting to hear, the toss might be delayed because of a wet outfield. But let's listen in to Trent Boult. He's going to be very, very crucial for New Zealand, and this is what he had to say before this match.
Yeah, I suppose I'm always trying to get better, first of all, but yeah, when the ball hasn't swung has always been the biggest challenge to try and get wickets and try to, I suppose, apply pressure. So, in terms of the running on the wicket, it's not really something that I'm worried about, but I'm just trying to get close to the stumps and, I suppose, make the most out of the swing that is available. So, we're expected to come against some pretty good wickets with the venues that we're playing on later in this tournament. So, just trying to sharpen the toolbox and make sure I've got some tricks up my sleeve.
All right, Dan, I'll come to you on Trent Boult. We all know that if New Zealand have to do well versus a team like South Africa, he really needs to come to the party. What do you make of his performance in the World Cup so far? Not too many wickets to show. Do you consider him a bit unlucky with the bowling that he's done?
Yeah, I do. I think if you look at the way teams have played him, it's almost that respect factor that's there. He's one of the premier bowlers in world cricket now, and teams aren't looking to take him on as much. I think there's been an argument that they've looked at Henry, they've tried to be aggressive to him, and I think against Ferguson with his pace, people tend to be slightly more aggressive. And those 2 bowlers in particular picked up wickets, Neesham in the last game. So Boult is almost has been respected out of the game in some ways. He's still bowled well, I've felt. I think he's done a job. He's in his usual role of top order, looking to take wickets, and then they use him at the back end of the deck. So I think once New Zealand come into these, what is perceived as tougher games, we'll see the best of Trent Boult, and we'll see him as an attacking weapon at the start and also at the deck.
Okay, we're just looking at those figures, Michael, for Trent Boult. This is versus South Africa. If he needs a team to really get back into form, South Africa could be the ones. Got good numbers there, 8 matches, picked up 12 wickets.
Yeah, you should never doubt a champion player, and Trent Boult has been a champion player for a long period of time for New Zealand. I think what he would love is to be able to get that ball swinging a little bit more. That's where he's at his most lethal best, swinging that ball back to the right-hander or away from the left-hander. But unfortunately, for some reason, the white ball hasn't really swung much at all at this World Cup, and probably for a few years now. Yeah. So that's his biggest asset. So he'll be hoping they can pick a nice ball out of that box that they get to choose from and really get that ball to bend early on in this game.
You were there in England, so I'm going to ask you, is the ball different, the Kookaburra ball this time? That's the reason it's not swinging? Why do you think?
Look, I didn't get a chance to see the ball, but I haven't seen it swing for the last 5-6 years. I don't know who went where and what happened. It's just that possibly another batsman got into some committee and said that the ball shouldn't swing. So whatever was left, you can take all the fielders, keep everybody for 50 overs inside the power play and make better bats, smaller grounds, better wickets, and the ball doesn't swing. Everything goes the batsman's way. Whereas I have no idea what's wrong with the ball. It has done nothing. Sometimes, as a bowler, you start questioning your own skill. It's like, imagine you have a bat and you try hit it as hard as possible. It doesn't go 15 meters, so you start questioning your own skill. It's similar to that. You try your level best, you bend, but the ball doesn't bend.
I always knew there's a fast bowler somewhere inside Murli Karthik because you can always trust him to come up with a good sledge as he just did against the batsman. But talking about sledging and banter, that happens a lot on social media. Let's go across to Anubhav for that.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. Despite New Zealand playing today, believe it or not, Jim Inisham isn't quite part of the social corner menu. We all know the high benchmark that he set, so if he's missed the cut, you're in for an absolute treat. Up first, we've got Owen Morgan, Captain Morgan, Quick Gun Morgan, whatever you want to call him, who's one batsman who definitely enjoyed the Kookaburra ball not swinging yesterday. Here's Owen Morgan responding to an ESPN Cricinfo rapid fire Q&A a few years back, and he was asked, which is your favorite shot? And he says, any shot that goes for a six. So we certainly know that he wasn't lying about his answer based on the fireworks that we saw him produce yesterday. Up next, we've got Nasser Hussain, who, as a cricket statistician points out, only managed 15 sixes in his entire ODI career. And we had Owen Morgan yesterday producing 17 sixes in a single game. And Nasser Hussain then replies in a very graceful manner, and he did that with a back spasm as well. Now, Nasser, something that might please you is the fact that Alistair Cook only managed 10 ODI sixes, despite having played 5 more ODI innings than you did. Michael Assi, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to quiz you on how well you know your career numbers. How many sixes did you manage in your ODI career?
I have no idea. I was not a big hitter. I was more the nicker and nudger and run hard between the wickets.
Nicker and nudger.
So I can't imagine there'd be
Mr.
a
Cricket.
lot of sixes in there at all.
Well,
Any
for those people who think that he wasn't a big hitter, you have to watch that T20 innings he played in St. Lucia. I keep referring to that versus Pakistan. One of the
Smashed
best.
Saeed
One
Akmal.
lucky day. One lucky
come
day.
on, he smashed
I'll have a guess. 20.
The number is actually 80.
80?
0.
You're way off the mark.
80.
That surprises me.
They knighted Alistair Cook after he managed only 10 sixes. Who knows, there might be an honorary knighthood coming your way as well. With 80
that'd be
sixes.
nice.
That'd be very nice.
Superb. Next up, we've got the Sunrisers Hyderabad, who talk about the prolific innings that Johnny Bairstow yesterday produced some heroics with the bat, and then next came Chennai Super Kings' very cheeky response saying that 54 ball 110 would have been painful, though no prizes for guessing which Afghan and Sunrisers spinner they're talking about here. And we're going to wrap proceedings with Mark Boucher on a very optimistic note, who believes that despite South Africa having very slim chances, he still feels that they can make it to the top 4. Nikhil would love to know from Albie Mockle whether he believes this is irrational optimism on the part of Mark Boucher.
Okay, let's get Albie to respond to that. Mark Boucher there, what do you reckon? He still thinks South Africa can make it?
I do believe so. I think they have to win every game, plus probably other games must go in their favour. Knowing Faf, he's a good leader. He knows how to get the best out of his players. Today is an important game, but I don't think they will feel a lot of pressure today. I think if they win today, and they win against Pakistan, then the pressure goes up again. So I think today is just going to be a nice clash. The team on the day who does the basics the best. The top 6, if our top 6 batters can fire. I said yesterday I'm calling an upset, if you want to call it that, but I think South Africa will have a narrow win.
Okay, we're building up to that game. Just quick word on the Chennai Super Kings there sledging the Sunrisers Hyderabad. We have a Chennai Super King right here. I thought there was a team of good guys, very quiet, don't sledge.
Yeah, we are. I don't know where that's come from.
Must be the social media team. All right, we'll take a break right now on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday UK 2019. Plenty more to discuss on the other side.
Kane, let's go. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Late nights or early mornings?
Early mornings for a surf.
Who is your favorite cricketer?
Growing up, Sachin.
A batsman that you would have liked to bat with?
Ricky Ponting. Or Sachin.
What should no one ask you to do on video?
Sing, dance.
Why do so many contemporary cricketers have beards?
I suppose if they shave them off, they might look really young. So, which when I shave mine off, I do. So, I don't know. It's the sort of thing. It grows, shave it off, start again.
Okay, and who has the best beard in cricket according to you?
Moeen Ali.
Which is your favorite innings?
Favorite innings? favourite tournament was the World Cup 2015. So we had a number of innings there. We had a low-scoring game against Australia, which was an enjoyable innings.
Are all Kiwis as funny as Jimmy Neesham?
As funny? Most are funnier. He's not that funny. Nah, he's funny.
One stroke that you'd like to take from each of the following: Joe Root, Virat Kohli and Steve Smith.
Yeah, I mean, those three are all world-class and all very different, which is, I guess, one of the most attractive things. They're all very different players, but all very, very effective. I like how he reverse laps bowlers. Most of his shots would be nice to have. And Steve Smith, the way he hits the ball through mid-wicket from any position.
Would you rather win a Test championship or a World Cup?
At the moment, the World Cup is the pinnacle event, but we'll have to see how the Test championship goes, because I'm sure that'll be a great thing to win as well.
Your favourite sports person outside cricket?
Roger Federer.
Welcome back to ESPN Cricinfo Matchday UK 2019. The latest that we're getting to hear from Edgbaston, the toss has been delayed due to a wet outfield. The good news though is it's not raining there at the moment in Birmingham, but a wet outfield means that we'll have to wait for the toss to happen and may just have a delayed start in that particular encounter. We're building up to game number 25 between New Zealand and South Africa. Michael Hussey, Murli Karthik in the studio, also joined by Dan Vittori and Albie Mokel. Albie, I'll come to you. Let's take a look at South Africa's playing 11. We're getting to hear Lungi Ngidi is now 100% fit, so he comes in for you automatically, and if he does, who do you leave out?
Yeah, he will definitely come back in for me, Lungi, if he's fit. He just adds that extra strike power. Even though Bjorn Hendricks in the other game, he bowled pretty nicely, and he gives South Africa that option with a left-hander, you know, swinging it back into the pads. But that would be my change. Lungi in for Bjorn Hendricks. I think that gives us our strongest bowling attack.
All right, yes, it does make South Africa's bowling attack much stronger if Lungi Ngidi comes, but it's also their batting which is a bit of a concern for the team, and this is Quinton de Kock talking about that.
No, not really, or not at all actually. We've played against them so many times. We've played against their opening bowlers numerous amounts of times, so we know what we're going to get. It's not like we don't know what we're up against. We know exactly what we're up against. So the emphasis is on the whole game, not just about bat and ball up front. It's about being well prepared up front and dominating in the middle, and then obviously with a good finish with bat and ball. So no, I don't think it's all boiled down just to the start of their bowlers and us up front.
Okay, Quinton de Kock talking about the challenge that they will have to face, especially against the New Zealand seam bowlers. We're just going to take a look at how the openers have performed for South Africa. I'll take a word from Michael Hussey here. Would that give them some sort of heart in the last game that they played? They spent a lot of time. Yes, there was criticism about the strike rate, but having spent some time on the crease might just come in handy now going forward.
Yeah, I thought Quinton de Kock looked quite good. They were both sort of started a bit slow, but there was a little bit of movement in that pitch against Afghanistan. But once Quinton de Kock got going, he looked like he was in really good touch and timed the ball nicely. Hashim Amla, on the other hand, looked like he battled through that innings. But that hour or couple of hours that he spent at the crease will be absolutely invaluable for him. And so let's hope for South African fans that having invested that time in the middle, that'll really help his confidence. And if he can start well today against New Zealand, then yeah, maybe there's a big one around the corner for him.
What have you noticed with Hashim Amla? Because fans aren't used to seeing this version of Hashim Amla who struggles on the pitch. Why do you think he's really not got going this tournament so far?
Look, he's not been in great form even coming into the tournament. Yes, he had some runs in the warm-up game, in one of the warm-up games. Look, he's always been somebody who's taken his time before he played his shots. So it's tough for me to put any. He looks the same. It's not as if he's trying to go and blaze. Sometimes you prepare the same, you do everything the same, but things don't turn out the same. I spoke to you about the bowlers. Sometimes you feel the same. You feel as if you're not getting your length. You try harder. It's like a swamp. You just go deeper and deeper, and sometimes for a batsman as well. And I remember Ricky punting with us at KKR. He didn't get runs for 4 or 5 innings. He prepared the same way, did everything the same way, but couldn't get runs. So it's a tough one to put a finger on. Possibly Huss has got a better answer.
Remember, he copped that nasty bouncer. He
Jofra
got hit by Jofra Archer, and that was a quick bouncer. And sometimes as a batsman, that can just rock your confidence a little bit. Just put a little bit of doubt in your mind, and you just don't feel as comfortable. So let's hope he's getting over that.
Yeah, but even while coming into the tournament, he was not in great form. And I'm still trying to figure out, with certain people you notice a change in stance, a change in the way they approach. But with Hashim, I'm still trying to figure out why is he struggling for runs, because the way he starts off is the same. He always, his template is to feel bat on ball, and then he goes, I don't know, I seriously don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about that bounce. So let me get Albie on this. Albie, would you then be tempted, I mean, just to give that confidence back to Hashim Amla, maybe not open with him, get him down to number 3. You've got Aiden Markram there in the ranks as well. Maybe push him to open, something that he does in Test match cricket?
Yeah, I think I've said it before. Hashim wants that responsibility of the new ball in ODI cricket. A couple of years ago, they offered that 3 or 4 role to him, and he didn't want it. Whether he wants it now, I'm not sure. But I know for a fact that in the past, he wanted that responsibility with the new ball and the field up. Just on that, I've played a bit of cricket with him in the last year domestically in South Africa, where he also struggled quite a bit. And technique-wise, he's still doing the same drills. He hasn't changed anything. But one thing that I saw from the outside was that he certainly rushed. He was someone in the past that had a lot of time to play shots, to get out of the way of short balls, even take it on. And to me, even against Afghanistan the other day, he looked rushed in his shots. Especially with a short pitch bowling, and I'm sure that's sitting in the back of his mind that the bowlers will probably attack him there, especially today against New Zealand as well. So, just back to your question, I don't think they'll move him down to 3. He'll still stay at the top.
Okay. Expect Hashim Amla then to open the innings for South Africa. Let's now turn our attention to the New Zealand team, and I'll get Dan Vittori on that. Dan, would you like to make any changes to your 11 then?
Well, I think they've been looking for a way to get potentially Southey and Nichols back into the team. They were first choice players before the tournament started. They had a couple of injuries, and then their replacements in Munro and Henry did a fantastic job. But I think if you look at the bowling side of things particularly, they'll want that experience of Southey in there. They'll also realise that it's tough for that fast bowling group to get through 9 games. And they want a bit of depth bowling protection, which they haven't had to worry about at this stage. But as they're coming up against these stronger teams, it will become more and more of a factor. So I think Southey will come in for Henry if he's fully fit, which I expect him to be. And then Nichols could come to the side either for Munro as a straight replacement, or they may look to lengthen that middle order and come in for one of the all-rounders, probably the Grandheim, because of how well Nation has bowled so far.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions on that based on your playing 11. First, let's take a look at the figures for the top 5 most economical bowler that we've seen in this World Cup so far. And there you have it. It's Lockie Ferguson right on top with an economy of 3.9. Trent bowled there at 4.2. And then you've got Pat Cummins and Hassan as well as Bhuvaneshwar Kumar on that list. Just following up on that question, Dan, I mean, you'd want Southey to come in. If I were Matt Henry, I'd feel a bit upset. 3 matches, 7 wickets.
Yep.
I think it's more a realisation of where they were at the start of the tournament, and also, like I said before, the ability to get through 9 games before that semi-final. I think that's a tough ask on a bowling group, and at some stage they're going to want to get Southey in there just to get a feel for who is actually bowling the best, because there's no doubt that Southey would have bowled well in those conditions in Cardiff when Henry was outstanding, and it's not to take anything away from him, but I think you want a bowling group that's ready to go throughout a tournament, and you don't want to leave it too long, because if someone gets injured, it might be a bit tougher to get into the tournament. So it could be for 1 game and Henry pops back in, but I do envisage that they'll look to Southey at some stage, and probably this game.
Okay, let's take a look at the top wicket takers also for New Zealand right now at this World Cup. And there you have it. You could see the likes of Ferguson is there. And then you could see Matt Henry, as I mentioned, and Jimmy Neesham. These are the New Zealand fast bowlers and the number of wickets that they've picked in the tournament so far. Dan, I'm just continuing with that. You want Colin de Grandhomme to go out and you bring Henry Nicholls in. The only problem with that, New Zealand going in then with 5 bowlers. We've seen a trend in this World Cup so far. You know, the 5th bowler sometime going for plenty, and then you need that 6th bowling option. If you were to remove Colin de Grandhomme, bring Henry Nicholls in, would you be comfortable with that?
It's a tight balance. I think they'll be happy with the way that Neesham's bowled and taken wickets, so that will give them a little bit of confidence. But you're right, it is tricky. De Grandhomme hasn't often bowled as full allotment in the last little while. So it may be Nicholls comes in for the likes of Munro, but Nicholls has been in outstanding form for New Zealand in Test matches and one days for an extended period of time, and I know that they really liked him at the top of the order. They thought that he gave them some foundation up there to complement Guptill. Munro started really well, but I still think New Zealand are the sort of team that will look to back the incumbents, the guys that were in those positions before injuries came into play.
I can understand why Dan must be thinking of, getting another batsman into the squad. We've seen the top order for New Zealand, yes, has performed, but it's that middle order which seems susceptible at points. Bangladesh game, I remember, it got down to very close. If you get someone like a Henry Nicholls in, you strengthen that part of your team.
Yeah, well, as Dan said, he's been in such good touch for New Zealand in the past year or so, so it'd be very tempting to get him in the order. Where you put him, do you put him at the top? Instead of Munro, or do you bring him into that middle order? That's probably a bonus for New Zealand. They've got that flexibility. He can play both roles pretty well. I think looking at that New Zealand team, the middle order looks pretty strong. You've got Williamson at 3. Taylor is obviously a class player. Latham's done a pretty good job as well. So I think they look like a pretty well-rounded team there, and they're just sort of topping up by bringing in the likes of a Southey and a Nicholls to what's already a pretty sound team. De Grandhomme's an interesting one, I guess, because New Zealand in the past have liked those little all-round players that can chip in with the ball and be handy with the bat as well. That's sort of been a bit of their blueprint, I guess, over many years of one-day cricket. Okay, what do you do? I mean, Michael raises that point. Dan, I'll come to you. Where do you bat Henry Nicholls then? Just looking at his one-day career, I think he's only opened the innings, but then you've got Munro doing rather well on top. Do you then take the risk of playing Nicholls in the middle order?
Well, it's tough. I think, like I said before, I think that they really want Nicholls in the side. They like him as not only a batsman but a fielder and as a leader in that unit. He's done such a great job for an extended period of time. So the easy answer, I think, is just a like-for-like replacement with Munro, and then that leaves that balance in the middle order. Huss is right in saying that New Zealand teams always like to have that depth around those middle order batsmen who can come in and bowl a little bit. So it could be a straight swap into that opening position. The only other option is to come in for one of the all-rounders, but that may leave us a little bit light with the bowling. So if he does come into the team, the easy position is to come straight into the opening slot.
Okay, plenty to talk about. We're building up to the game number 25, New Zealand taking on South Africa. But the latest now that we're getting to hear from Edgbaston is that the umpires are out for an inspection at this moment. Yes, the toss has been delayed because of a wet outfield. When will the toss take place? We still don't know. The umpires are still out at the moment in the set.
In their Super Sixes clash against South Africa in the '99 World Cup, Australia were chasing 272, and Steve Waugh was on 56 when he mistimed a shot to Herschel Gibbs, one of the finest fielders of the game. What followed gave Gibbs a memory he could not shrug off for years to come.
A team meeting the night before that game, and we're going through their players like you always do. Got to Herschel Gibbs, and then the great Shane Warne, who obviously can think left of centre, a very creative person. He suggested to Herschel Gibbs, when he caught the ball, and Jonty Rhodes, they'd throw up the ball before they'd actually controlled the ball, and it wasn't a catch. So he felt it should be a team rule that we'd actually stand our ground and question the umpire whether they'd actually held onto the catch long enough. And for me, it was right out of left field. I'd never even thought of something like that, but it shows how much Shane Warne thinks about the game. Steve Waugh said it wasn't a team rule, but if an individual batsman felt that happened, then they were quite in their rights to stand their ground. Now fast forward to the game, and Steve Waugh's in the middle of his innings, and he flicks the ball off to Herschel Gibbs, who proceeds to take the ball, but in the case of trying to throw it up, he drops the ball and doesn't control it all. There was no doubt that it wasn't a catch. And now, it wasn't quite what Warney was saying, but amazing from the great man to be able to pick up that a couple of them didn't hold the catch in the right spirit of the game. And it's amazing how something as simple as that was enough to get us through. Steve Waugh went on to get 120, and all of a sudden we're in the semi-finals.
Something easier? Put your tipping to the test. Play Cricket Picks, the new predictor game from ESPN Cricinfo. Go to espncricinfo.com/cricketpicks.
Welcome back to ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. Not great news from Birmingham at the moment. Because of a wet outfield, the toss has been delayed. The umpires are out for an inspection. Doesn't seem like we'll have a toss very soon, though the good news in all of this is that it's not raining at the moment, so looks like we'll still get a game. How long will that be? We'll still have to wait and watch. Okay, we're building up to New Zealand versus South Africa. One of the key battles that you'll see in this particular match will play out in the middle overs. It'll be Imran Tahir with the ball, and then the mainstay for New Zealand batting, as we've seen, the middle order of Ross Taylor and Williamson. And this is how Tahir has done against them. Dismissed Taylor twice and dismissed Williamson 4 times. This, as I said, I come to Murli Karthik on our panel, a spinner talking about another spinner in Imran Tahir. We know that for New Zealand, these two are the ones that have been getting them majority of runs. So they've got a good weapon up their sleeve, South Africa and Imran Tahir.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising for me. I would have thought that he had a better record against Ross Taylor because of the way he prods and tries to play in front of his pads and tries to flick it with
Averages
the way
28.
Imran Tahir goes. Yeah, it's a bit surprising.
Okay.
Kane Williamson is a very good player of spin.
Yeah.
For him to get him 4 times, I think he's done really well. Yeah, Imran Tahir has been the key. Look, I just find him and his demeanour quite infectious. At 40 years of age, just the zeal to bowl and enjoy his wickets, I don't think anyone has it. And he has also had to temper the way he is bowled. Yeah. The first time I saw him, he just wanted to bowl 6 magical deliveries and take 8 wickets on those 6 deliveries. And he's changed a bit. He's controlled the way he wants to go about it. And there's a lot of thought process in what he does nowadays. And that's one of the reasons why he's been so successful. I'm pretty sure that somebody like Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson will be wary of what he does in the middle, because we saw the way Faf du Plessis has used him, and in the last couple of games he's been amongst the wickets. So him amongst the wickets doesn't spell is not great news for the opposition, because he's somebody who definitely has the ability to run through the middle order.
And you'd expect South Africa, with all the analysis it's done these days, to know those stats. Yeah. And so I would not be surprised at all if Faf du Plessis gets on Imran Tahir as soon as Williamson comes to the crease, as soon as Ross Taylor comes to the crease, to try and get them out early.
Okay, just because the leg spinners are doing really well, I was curious to know from Dan Vittori, were you not then tempted to look at someone like Ish Sodhi? We also know that Edgbaston usually helps the spinners, and then South Africa, I know they've got a great leg spinner, Imran Tahir, but their batsmen themselves have struggled against leg spin. You've got a weapon up your sleeve as well in Ish Sodhi.
Well, unfortunately, I think the weather conditions have probably hampered that idea for New Zealand. I think in the back end of the New Zealand summer, they looked to use the 2 spinners, Satnath, filled more of an all-rounder role, and then Sodi was used as an attacking weapon, and he was pretty successful as well. I think they really liked his style of bowling. So once again, he's another guy that I'd love to fit into a team, but the team is successful at the moment, playing well, so how to do that is tricky. And I think the fact that there's a wet outfield, overhead conditions, all those little things probably just play against Ish coming into the team. But it is Edgbaston as well, and it was seen spinners be very successful there. We look back to a champion trophy quite a few years ago where spinners did such a great job. So New Zealand does have a lot of options at the moment, which is very fortunate, but I think it's probably just one step too far to try and fit Ish in the team at this stage.
Okay, let's take a look at what's happening at Edgbaston at the moment. These are pictures that you can see of the umpires looking at the conditions right now. For those of you who are watching us on Caribbean TV, you can see those pictures. What we can see at the moment, the umpires are in discussion whether the toss will take place shortly or not. We'll have to wait and watch. But remember, it's a wet outfield, and that's the reason why it has been delayed, and not so much because it's raining in Edgbaston at the moment. I'm just going to continue that discussion with Dan Vittori. Dan, we were talking about the conditions, and you said conditions will dictate the team that New Zealand play. New Zealand has great intel there in a local, now I can call him Jiten Patel, the local county captain. He must have given them some sort of information of what to expect.
Yeah, I've seen Jeet's name pop up a few times in the media back home, so he's obviously been helping out and trying to give some information to New Zealand team. And it's not that long ago that Jeet actually played for New Zealand, so he'll be very close to everyone there. He'll have such an amazing understanding of the wicket. He's been so successful for Warwickshire for a number of years now, and he's utilised those conditions better than most. So whether they prepare a different wicket for him in domestic cricket, knowing how well he goes compared to the international game, will be something that he will possibly know. We'll find out. But I know he's been an advocate of the two spinners, the way he's spoken in the press. Satner in that all-rounder role, and Sodi to be the aggressor through those little stages to try and take wickets. Not too concerned with how many runs he goes for, like a Tahir in a lot of ways, where Tahir is there to take wickets almost every ball, as Kartik rightly pointed out. The wicket taker is so effective in those middle stages, and I don't think today will be the day, but hopefully at some stage Sodi does get a chance in this tournament.
Just looking at the conditions, we don't know how the pitch is going to behave right now. You just look at the last few games played. They had a game there, I think 2 weeks ago, which was a county game, because I was talking about Jiten Patel picked up 6 wickets. So traditionally, you've played that too. Traditionally, it's a sort of a wicket that helps spinners, you'd say.
Look, it depends. County cricket is very different. We all know that, because what happens is that if you've got a trump card, the teams can tend to prepare a wicket like that. Predominantly, if it's a normal pitch, and if there are some overheads, definitely it does deck a bit at Edgbaston, and it becomes a good surface. But don't go by county. Both of us have played county cricket, so as Dan, sometimes it depends on your overseas player.
Okay. We'll also, we just saw glimpses of the pitch there at Edgbaston. Looks a bit brown. That must be encouraging for spinners after we've seen a lot of green pitches in the Cricket World Cup so far. But for those of you who watch our program as well as are enjoying the Cricket World Cup, you can participate in a contest that we've got going on ESPN Cricinfo. It's called Cricket Picks, and all you need to do is predict the winner. This is how you can join in.
Put your tipping to the test. Play Cricket Picks, the new predictor game from ESPN Cricinfo. Make predictions and track your progress throughout the tournament. The easiest thing you'll do all day. Go to espncricinfo.com/cricketpicks and play today.
All right, let's just quickly take a look who our experts have gone with. And you've got Murli Karthik here in the studio, who's picked New Zealand. Dan's gone with New Zealand. Michael Hussey has gone with New Zealand. It's only Ajit Agarkar and Darren Ganga that have picked South Africa. All right, meanwhile, 48 matches, 96 innings, 28,800 balls. We are following every ball here. And you know what? We are also going to play the World Cup as the match happens on Hotstar Watch and Play, where you don't just play the match or watch it, you play and live alongside your favorite cricketer. All right, so that's what we've got for you. Watch the game on Hotstar, and you can also participate. Quick word, both of you have picked New Zealand, starting with you. Why?
I don't know. I find it really hard to pick a winner in this one. It's really tight.
Okay.
I think the frustrating thing is that outfield, and just looking at some of those pictures, look like really leaden skies, not great drying conditions. So let's hope it's not too bad. It's a bit hard to tell from back here that it can dry out as, so it's fit and the players can get out there and put on a good show.
The reason I picked New Zealand, I feel my cricket sense or whatever limited knowledge I have,
You have plenty.
feels that tells me that New Zealand is a better side.
Okay, I was also looking at the form. New Zealand have been on fire at this Cricket World Cup, one of only 2 teams not to have lost a match so far. Will that trend continue versus South Africa? For that, we need to have a game. For the moment, not great news, as I've been saying, the toss has been delayed. That's all that we have for you on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. We'll come back when we have a game to watch. Thanks so much for joining.